So my name's Aure. I'm 26. I'm originally from Luxembourg, but I've been living in the UK since I came for uni when I was 18. I have albinism, so I'm visually impaired. And I currently work as a researcher in a lab in Oxford, where I look at how to make, how we can best make a vaccine against HIV, because there is no vaccine against HIV. So I'm an immunologist, so I work with I study the immune system, which is the part of your body that fights disease. So that's what I do, and so I guess we'll talk about education and stuff. But briefly, like I did natural sciences at Cambridge, and then I did a master's, and then I did a PhD in immunology, and I just finished my PhD, and now I do research. I've always been really interested in like how the body works, really. But when I was like 15, 16, I was like reading like these science magazines that my uncle got me a subscription for my birthday when I was like 12, and then he got me, it was my birthday present like every year. It was very cute. Anyway, I was reading, and like I was reading these magazines, and like I really got into like how we can use like DNA and RNA to like investigate disease and like genetics and stuff. And because of my condition, like I had a vague understanding of genetics. Like my parents had like explained to me why I have albinism and my siblings don't and stuff. And so I was like, I think it would be quite fun to be a scientist. So that's kind of where it came from. And I thought I would want to do genetics, but I wasn't sure. So then I applied to Cambridge because they have this natural sciences course where you can kind of choose your subjects. So I did a bit of chemistry, a bit of biochemistry, a bit of cell biology. Turns out I didn't like genetics that much. And then I kind of randomly really liked the lectures about viruses and the immune system. So I kind of went more into that and specialized in that. And then I ended up doing my third year, doing my research project in immunology and applying for postgrad. I knew I wanted to do a PhD. And when I was applying, I found this immunology program, and I kind of like immunology. So I did immunology for my PhD, and now I'm an immunologist. I think weirdly it gets easier as you go, because when you're in school, you want to like do everything like everyone else, right? And you have practicals, and you're like, I don't know how to, I can't see what I'm doing, so I don't know how to do this. And you feel that you have to do everything. But honestly, you don't. Like, often you work in pairs, and you can just be the one like doing stuff on the computer rather than the one pouring the acid when you can't see what you're doing. And the problem with high school practicals is that every week you're doing something else. So by the time you've learned how to do it your way, next week you're doing something new. So like you're always trying to adapt things, and you don't get to the point where you have adapted them and you can actually do them. So I found like high school practicals were a challenge because they didn't give me the impression I could do this. Like it was always really hard, and I felt like I could never really be independent. But then like you go to uni, and then you have more practicals, so you find more solutions to the problem. So for me, like it was very low tech stuff. It was like a pocket magnifier and some pieces of cardboard, laminated cardboard, to increase contrast, like really dumb stuff, which really helped. And I still couldn't do everything, and I was still really slow, but I could do more. And as long as you understand what your partner is doing, it doesn't matter that you don't physically do it, because honestly, you finish an undergrad and the technical skills of people who finish undergrads are still terrible. And whenever they go into a real lab for a job or a postgrad, they have to learn everything from scratch anyway. So honestly, it wasn't a big problem. And then when I started being full-time in the lab, like for my postgrad, I got this pair of glasses that I use. I don't have them here, I left them at work. But basically they have a monocular on one eye, and they kind of magnify what I do on one eye, whereas the other eye still has a decent field. And suddenly I could do everything. Now, then the thing is, you have to learn how to use the technology, and you have to get people to believe you that you can actually do what you say you can do, especially when you're new. And like, for me, like if I'm in a new place and I don't know where things are, it's a lot harder, because finding things is really hard when you can't see, right? But once you know where things are, you kind of develop a really good memory for where things are, because you don't want to have to find them again. And then people can't really tell that you can't see. It's really obvious to me now, because I've moved from a lab where I knew where every single thing was to a place where I'm completely new and everything takes me 5 times as long. And now the challenge is, like, I know that I can do this because I've clearly been doing it for 4 years, but I have to be really patient with myself to like give myself time to learn the new place and become as proficient as I was in the old place. So that's the newer challenge. But in terms of convincing people, going back, in terms of convincing people that you can do it, I think you just have to believe you can do it and act like you do, and be very clear about the things you're sure about, the things you're unsure about, the things you haven't tried yet. And also that, at least for me, if I haven't tried something yet, I can't tell you how I'm going to do it. I have to try, and then I will see what the problem is, and then I will think of a solution. And because we all have our own like specific kind of VI and specific needs, some of us like a lot of light, some of us don't like a lot of light, some of us struggle with depth perception, some of us don't. I think everyone has their own unique way of doing it. So I'm very honest with the people around me, saying, look, I have to try, and then we'll figure out how I do it. But just by you telling me how you do it, that's not going to tell me how I do it, because that's not how my eyes work. And yeah, and then also like having people who've gone through it, who've done some science, who've been in a lab and who are visually impaired, really helps, because they can feel the pain, and also they can give advice. So that's I've been very lucky in that respect, meeting people who are also VI scientists. I have a very good friend who is a VI doctor and scientist. Some people. And do I know any? I know a couple of like people who are in like, software and physics and things, but in terms of biological sciences, I know the one person, really. I didn't go to school in the UK, but I knew I wanted to go to university. I knew I wanted to do science. I hadn't really thought about where, how, what. But in Luxembourg, most people go abroad to study. So I was on a model European Parliament trip to the UK, and they took us to Cambridge for a day trip. And it was really nice, and they were really friendly. And obviously, everyone knows about the reputation of Cambridge. Even I knew about the reputation of Cambridge. So they were really friendly. And I was like, oh, this is a nice place. What grades do you need? Oh, I could potentially do that. Then I started looking at courses, and then from looking at the Cambridge courses, I looked at other courses and at other unis. And the Cambridge course is special in that it's very broad. So in your first year, there are like 8 science subjects, and you choose 3. But those science subjects go from ecology to chemistry to physics to geology. So you can kind of make up your own thing, which was really nice, because it gives you a broad kind of background and broad foundation to then build your expertise on. And then there's a lot of choice in second and third year, which was really nice. Plus, it's a nice place to live. Some of the lab technicians in one of the labs had come across my friend, who's a scientist, because she was a few years above me. But I'd never had a professor come up to me and be like, oh yes, I know so-and-so who's also visually impaired. And which I think was a good thing for me, because sometimes when they've had other VI students, they assume things that they really shouldn't, about how we all do things the same way, which we very much don't. But no, I think I was mostly the first VI student for most of my like professors and supervisors and things. I think in first year, I wasn't the only VI student in the class. I think there were a couple guys in lectures who had things on A3 paper. For me, it's completely useless. So I had to always be like, no, I'm the one who gets the electronic format. They get the A3 paper. In first year, my uni had this thing called International Disabled Students Fund or something, which I applied to, which allowed me to have an extra demonstrator in chemistry practicals to kind of just help me out, because in chemistry we weren't working in pairs and I found it quite difficult. Apart from that, I never got, because I came from Luxembourg, I had my equipment from school, which they let me keep. I went paperless when I was 12. I do not do paper. I have everything on my computer and I use my magnification software. And then I had this CCTV thing, which you plug into the computer and zooms in on the board or PowerPoint, whatever is being shown. So I used that. I had a docking station for it in my room. If I had to do any like thing actually on paper, like organic chemistry, for example, is really hard to do on a computer. I have a monocular, which I use a lot, a handheld magnifier, my colored pieces of paper. Now I have my lab glasses, but I didn't have them when I was an undergrad. And then I started using a white cane in second year. I'd never used one before, but walking around Cambridge at night was not very nice. So I got a white cane. I wish I had my lab glasses from about the time I was 12, but you know, I mean, some people like to use a dictaphone, like a recorder thing. I never really got the hang of it. But I got into this routine where I would, because it's really hard to follow a PowerPoint on the CCTV and take notes on the computer when, you know, it's a bit too fast, especially if you have to like zoom in and out and things. So after second year, I think during second year, I started to be a little bit more cheeky and ask cheeky. It's not really cheeky, but it felt cheeky at the time. Instead of using my CCTV and lugging it around all day, I would ask the lecturers for the PowerPoints in advance so I could have them on my own screen. So that meant I had one less piece of equipment. It's enough for me to follow on my own screen by zooming into the slide on my own screen. And then the other thing I would do is I would pre-read. So I would go through the slides or the handbook or whatever beforehand. So I would know what would be covered, which made it a lot easier to find my way around to where I wanted to jot down notes during lectures. I had pretty good support, and mostly the university was very accommodating and kind of chasing after lecturers to give me the slides and things. And then the other thing they did actually, which was really important, was the textbooks, because textbooks are a pain to read. The university library got me PDF versions of the textbooks from the editors. They managed to get PDF versions for me, which was really great because then I had access to the textbooks as well. I mean, for me, because with science, like textbooks are used in first year and then not very much. And then very quickly you start reading papers, like, you know, academic literature. It's not as much of a problem. There's very little that is exclusively paper-based. I think the thing with Cambridge, which is really nice, is the college system, and the same is true of Oxford and Durham. Because you rock up and you immediately are in this bubble where everyone, you know, everyone's starting. In a lot of colleges, all the freshers live close to each other, which I guess, I don't know if that's the same in halls in other universities, but for me, I was in this corridor with a bunch of freshers, and then you get assigned, like, they have this buddy system, they call them college families, where like 2 second years take on like 3 or 4 freshers and kind of show them around, or their point of contact, all that stuff. So you immediately like have that bubble, and you have these people who basically you've been assigned to. It's forced socializing, but it works. And people were quite chill about me not wanting to go clubbing. People didn't seem to mind. I think a lot of people didn't really know I was VI, or didn't really know the extent of it. Now I have the privilege that I don't walk around with a cane all the time. I didn't have a cane at all at the time. It's not, you can't tell. by watching me walk down the street. That's sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I think for a lot of people, they kind of learned it gradually. And then when it comes up in conversation, I just mention it. And when the white cane appeared, people kind of asked about it for 30 seconds. And then they were like, okay, fine, I don't care, which is really nice. So you just have to find your, find your group where you fit in. And I didn't have that at school. And I was a little bit worried when I started university, but actually it kind of just happened. And I think compared to school, I think people just grow up, and people are there to study. People are interested in the subject, and making friends is their way of relaxing. So there's no drama, there's no, people just want to have a good time. I definitely found it a lot easier at university than I did at school. I think with halls and things, you find your, you find your group. With work and with convincing professors and supervisors and bosses that you know what you're doing, you kind of don't act like, if you don't act like you're weird, then people won't assume you're weird. If you just be yourself, and like being VI is part of who I am, and it's not all of who I am, but like it comes up in conversation. People show me something, and people show me their phone to show me a picture, and I go, oh, can I see that? And grab their phone and look at it really close. And they, if they think that's weird, then too bad. Definitely get some work experience, because it can do two things. It can show you really don't want to be doing this, which is good to know before you go to uni, or it can show you do really want to do this, and it can give you an inkling about the kind of difficulties you might encounter, get you thinking about the solutions, and also show you that you can do it. So, if you don't know what to expect, you're going to worry about it. If you go in a lab with no expectations other than watch people do the job and ask questions and learn some stuff, you go, you ask questions, you learn some stuff, you figure out what you can do easily, what you can't do easily, and you start thinking about solutions, and then it becomes concrete, and you start, viewing it as a real thing that you could do. So definitely get some work experience. I mean, if they're already watching this, they've done a good job, because find some people who are doing it and who are VI and talk to them. I know there's a Facebook group called, I think it's Doctors with Disabilities or something. Might be. I don't think there's a VI doctors one, but there's a Doctors with Disabilities one for medicine. Don't know if there's a science one, but I mean, with Look, there's plenty. I know plenty of people who've gone through some sort of STEM pathway. Yeah, and just go with it. I got to Cambridge, and on about day 3, I had some orientation and mobility training, just to show me the way to and from lectures around one of the departments, all that stuff. And the lady who was doing it said, you should really meet this person. She's a medical student and she has the same condition as you. This is my good friend who's a doctor and a scientist, and, is VI. And also you should meet this guy. He started a Goalball club and they seem to really enjoy it. And I was like, what is Goalball? So I met them both and I tried out Goalball and I got hooked.